Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome in. I'm Chris Phillips. He is Cole the Bear Thompson. It is Wednesday, March the 11th, and this is Chewing Clock, SEC Unfiltered's bi-weekly SEC football show. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. We have got a jam-packed show here on this hump day. You might recall on Monday we talked most important game for each team in the SEC going in the 2026 season. Today, we're talking upset alert games. What are the games you should be watching out for as maybe they're flying under the radar, or right now you're willing to put a W next to that game in heavy black ink, but not so fast, my friend. Those upset alert games to watch out for, again, for every team in the SEC this season. We're going to talk about that. Also, our season will be successful if series continues. Oklahoma and Tennessee. What will define a successful season in 2026? And of course, as always, we are taking your questions, your comments, everything in between here on a jam-packed Wednesday. Like I mentioned, we appreciate you all tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, all across your favorite social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And as always, we are powered by our friends over at Underdog. Download the Underdog app today. Use promo code SECU to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. Once again, that's promo code SECU to get $75 in bonus entries today. I am Chris Phillips. He's Cole the Bear Thompson. This is Chewing Clock. We are live on air each and every single Monday and Wednesday at 2 o'clock Central. Loaded show today. Number of different topics. We also want to hear from you. Cole, first things first, appreciate you taking the time. Really excited to chat with you once again. Are you as much of a football guy as John Summerall is? In case y'all may have missed it, John Summerall, whether it was in jest or he was dead serious, essentially came out this week, Cole, and said that his 15-year wedding anniversary and his wife's birthday either are this week or were last week or within the next few weeks, but that he's got too much shit to do, so they're not going out of the country anymore to celebrate. I guess they're doing something locally in the Sunshine State. The ultimate football guy answer. Are you quite as football guy as John Summerall, or would the missus have your neck if you gave her that excuse for not taking her on the trip you promised?
I got married in June, so that was the big time reason. I made sure that there was never going to be that intake to begin with. So, John, what the hell were you thinking getting married in March? You knew that this was spring football practice. What were you doing getting married during the regular season? You know that you got games on Saturdays. This is why, again, summer weddings are perfect for us. We got to make sure that we get time away with the women so that way we can go ahead and have fun during the months of January through March and then August through November, December.
That was the ultimate football guy answer, though. That's you got to love that. You're a Gators fan.
Okay, can we all agree at this point? 1,000%. This is the now moment where John Summerall is no longer going to be able to be compared to Billy Napier, because Billy would be a guy that would take his wife on vacation.
Yeah, he would have skipped out on spring ball. He definitely would have skipped out on spring ball for sure. No, love that. Love that from John Summerall. Really exciting stuff. Again, Cole, I really appreciate you taking the time. Really excited to chat with you. As always, it has been a really, really fun week over here at HQ. One quick housekeeping item before we get going. Obviously, again, really exciting week right now. Really exciting time, Cole, to be a sports fan with, spring ball's in full swing. We've got the SEC basketball tournament, which officially started here in Nashville this morning as the time of us speaking, of course. SEC baseball conference play is around the corner. Like I mentioned, though, specifically on the basketball side of things. For those of you out there, I know obviously we're Chewing Clock or a football show, but if you are in or around or are coming to Nashville, Tennessee, we will be dropping this announcement very soon on social media. Really excited to announce we are partnering up with our friends over at Outlaw Beer and Slider House in Midtown in Nashville next weekend, Thursday through Sunday, essentially to host an SEC Unfiltered HQ for all things March Madness. So yours truly going to be out and about in the city at Slider House watching all of the games. I think we're expecting double-digit SEC basketball teams to get into March Madness. So going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be games all day. Who doesn't love March Madness? Obviously, I'm even going to force Cole the Bear Thompson to fill out a bracket, and we're going to publicize that for everybody to see. So going to be a lot of fun. Just make sure you stay tuned to social media for the graphic, for the announcement. We're going to have beer specials, food specials. We're going to have a massive bracket that we're going to fill out as the games go. But just going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, we love to do events and get to meet you guys in person and hang out and shoot the shit and drink a couple cold ones and have a good time. So anyways, make sure you stay tuned to that. Going to be a lot of fun as March Madness approaches next weekend. But Cole, what we're here for, let's discuss. Again, Monday, we talked most important games for each and every single SEC team. Today, we're talking upset alert games for each team. Maybe, again, it's a game flying under the radar when you look at the schedule and you don't think much of, and most folks would just put a W next to it, right? But Cole, you know as well as I do, there's always games for every single team. Even if they don't lose, it comes down to the wire. It's closer than expected. It seems, especially in today's college football, where the parity is just through the roof and it's absolutely crazy and it's chaos each and every single week. There are games that you can look at on this each and every single schedule and say, hey, you better be on upset alert. You better at least keep your head on a swivel when it comes to this ball game. So without further ado, upset alert games for each and every single team in 2026. And guys, we'd love to hear from you. What are the games that you think, whether it's your team or another, you better be on upset alert. You better be weary of that matchup. Y'all let us know. But Cole, let's go in alphabetical order this time. On Monday, we started with Vandy. Let's start at the top with the Alabama Crimson Tide, and we'll go all the way down, of course, ending with the Vanderbilt Commodores. So, Cole, when it comes to Alabama and their 2026 schedule, we went through it on Monday, but really quickly, the non-conference games include ECU, Florida State, and Chattanooga all at home. The SEC slate, specifically on the road at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, at LSU, at Vandy. You know, you look at, and I think what's an interesting caveat here, Cole, as we go through and we do this exercise, what are games realistically that these teams are going to be favorites? That's part of an upset. You have to be a favorite. So bottom line, when you look at Bama slate in 2026, Cole, the game that you put Alabama on upset alert for.
Oh, it's the easiest one out there, I think. Who did they nearly lose to back-to-back years? South Carolina. South Carolina took Alabama down to the wire in both instances. In one, they nearly fought the comeback and got the win in Tuscaloosa. And then last year, Alabama needed a freak play and bad coverage for Jeremy Bernard to bust on into the end zone. I mean, both of those things happened to where Shane Beamer nearly was able to get Alabama to bend the knee. And you're back in Tuscaloosa, and you still got a veteran quarterback, and you still got a good wide receiver core and a solid defense, and you upgraded in terms of your play caller with Kendall Briles. You add all that together, Alabama going into this game is going to be favored. So clearly, just simply based off of that logic, South Carolina has an opportunity to once again take the Crimson Tide to the woodshed and at least give them a beating to remember. Maybe it won't end up being a 27-24 win, or maybe it'll end up being like a close call either way. But South Carolina, with mediocre offensive play calling, has been able to go toe-to-toe with the Crimson Tide. You're getting a decent play caller in Kendall Briles. I at least think that this is going to be a game that you have to circle and say, hey, now they got their act together. Watch out. They may be in business in 2026.
For the sake of being different than you, Cole, because I agree with you. I think that's certainly one when you look at the last 2 years. You got to put Bama on upset alert. I'm going to go at Mississippi State. The trip to Starkville, again, you're going to notice that I repeat a few of these teams because there's some of these teams out there in the SEC, Cole, that they're perpetually going to be underdogs, and they're like that. They fall in that dangerous category where they may not be great, but they have the ability to upend someone on any given week. I think South Carolina falls in that category as well. But at Mississippi State, Kamario Taylor, let's say you get that win over the Gamecocks, then you got to go on the road. Don't overlook that game, Alabama. Don't overlook that game at Mississippi State. Could be a tricky one. I know they have great success, obviously, in Starkville and against the Bulldogs, but this could be the year Mississippi State finally beats Alabama for the first time in forever. Look, Cole, let's go to the Arkansas Razorbacks. The interesting thing for this is that, again, how many games is Arkansas going to be favored in? So, there's not a ton of options here, but when you look at Arkansas, upset alert game for the Hogs this season.
I think that we both have the exact same because it's probably the only game outside of North Alabama that they will be favored in. It's Tulsa. I mean, like, I don't think Tulsa is going to do it. I don't. But I do have to say, if for some reason, bad offensive execution, a line play that has been insufficient, really underwhelming quarterback perception, maybe the Golden Hurricane are able to at least bring this thing to the brink of an upset. And maybe that itself is an upset because they would beat the spread. Either way, this is the only game to where I think for sure Arkansas is going to be favored. Therefore, it's probably the only game we could pick.
Yeah, I'm going with you. The same thing to Tulsa. The only way that there's another one is that if Arkansas gets off to a much better start than expected, maybe like at Vandy becomes an upset scenario.
Sure.
I just realistically looking at it right now, I agree with you. I think it is Tulsa. Coming off that Georgia game, you're going to be beat up a little bit physically, mentally, what have you. Don't sleep on that one. Don't sleep on the Tulsa game. I don't want to see it for Ryan Silverfield, to say the very least. Let's go to the Auburn Tigers, Cole. What's the game for Auburn that you look at them year one of Alex Golesh that they better be on upset alert for this season?
There's a couple that I could have gone with, but I feel like that, hey, you're going to be a little bit overhyped going into the year, just a smidge. And it's your day one option to set the tone of a new era for Alex Golesh. And maybe that leads to, with desperation on the opposing side, something crazy out in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I got Baylor. Listen, Baylor is a team that is probably going to be reeling. They have a head coach that is fighting for his life once again to stay around. They have a quarterback in DJ Lagway that maybe is going to be a better fit for the offense. Or he's going to end up being the next RG3 for all we know. And I do like what Auburn has, but I think that there is a fine level of, okay, maybe because of it's one of those matchups where we weren't fully prepared, we're going to look back and look really stupid this game. It reminds me a lot of the Georgia-Oregon game when Bo Nix was starting quarterback for Dan Lanning that first year. Oregon got their shit kicked in. I mean, like, they got embarrassed. They ended up still getting to 10-plus wins. Like maybe that could be Auburn with, 9 wins. They just don't look the part in this game in a neutral site field for a first-year coach making his debut with the program.
Cole, I could be really disrespectful and go Samford here. And that feels overly disrespectful to Alex Golesh in year one. Samford has given Auburn some pretty tough games over the years. That's really the only reason. I don't know a lot about their program or their team this year, and I don't think it's going to happen. But I'm just saying, they've played some competitive games against Auburn. The game I'm going to go with is Vanderbilt. Listen, it's on the plains. I get it. Vandy's going to have Auburn's full attention because what's happened over the last couple of years, but it's still a game. Auburn's going to be favored. I think this is the one for me that makes the most sense. Maybe you could look at an Arkansas late in the season or an at Mississippi State late in the season. Like you said, there's a number of options here, but I'm going to go that game at Vandy. I still think it'd be considered an upset with a Jared Curtis going into Jordan-Hare if he were to get the win. But if there's anybody that's going to have his team prepared and going to have a ton of confidence going up against Auburn, they've won there before. Clark Lee is going to have that team ready. So Auburn coming off the Florida game, especially if you're coming off that one high and mighty, do not sleep on that matchup against Vandy. You feel, if anybody, they would know that. Cole, the Florida Gators, what's the game you look at for Florida putting the Gators on upset alert?
It feels wrong to do it this way, but I'm also really high on Florida, and I think that they will end up being a team that we're talking about in a much more prominent light. But it's a rivalry game. End of the year, Doak Campbell Stadium, FSU. I mean, what if that's the game where Mike Norvell is either fighting to save his job or they're trying to just end things on their own terms? They want to make it a bowl-eligible matchup. And you're Florida, and you're feeling confident. You're like, yeah, you know what? We got this locked up. And you get a little bit too big for your britches, and ultimately, this is where you come collapsing. I'm not saying that there are other games, but I look at the Auburn game. I feel like that's going to be an even keel matchup. I look at the game that you have against Ole Miss. That may end up being a really good game. I think that you're going to be an underdog in the matchup against Oklahoma. So Florida State feels like one, hey, you're probably not going to lose it. You probably got this wrapped up, especially if Mike Norvell's still coaching. But it's a rivalry. Weird stuff happens. The team that usually is the better opponent isn't always the one that walks away with the dub.
Cole, I like that one, and I agree with you on that from that rivalry game standpoint. Certainly anything can happen. I'm going to go at Kentucky. These games have been weird over the years, and I know Mark Stoops isn't there anymore. You could argue they upgraded at head coach with Will Stein, dare I say. Florida is going to be favored because I agree with you. I'm actually high on John Summerall in year one at Florida. I think I don't know if they're going to be obviously a playoff team, but thinking around that 8-win mark, maybe 9 wins feels right for them. That game in Lexington, it has been their bugaboo. It has been their one of their big issues. It's that whole, I tell you, one of the objectives, if you're John Summerall, get the Florida-Kentucky series back where Gators feel like it should be, which is Florida beating Kentucky every single year. You just can't lose to Kentucky as the Florida head coach and live to tell the tale for very long. I know Kentucky's going to be an upstart program this year, exciting, but again, that one to me has got trap game written all over it. Coming off of Georgia, Oklahoma, you're going to have Vandy at home, then at Florida State the following weeks. At Kentucky, make sure you watch out for that game. And again, keep your head on a swivel when you go into Lexington. Cole, the Georgia Bulldogs, again, there's a lot of options to pick because they're going to be favored in basically every single game. Essentially, I believe every single game. You and I both have the same selection, though. Your thought, what the upset alert pick is for the Dogs?
Come on. The rivalry's back. It's one that has been very lopsided forever. It feels like that unless it's going to be the greatest upset of the season. It never happens. But South Carolina, will he be on a Saturday night? I mean, let's be real. That is one of the most ravenous atmospheres in college football. You have a quarterback in Lenore Sellers that's hyper athletic. One of the things that was a big deal breaker last season for Georgia was at times their inability to play great defense in the trenches. If you're able to run with your quarterback and you're able to make plays in open space, I'm telling you, South Carolina is a wild card. And they're a wild card all around the SEC. That includes what could happen when Georgia comes into your building.
South Carolina over the years, Cole, and I agree with you, it's my selection as well. They have been the fly in the soup for Georgia. Where you're right, like the all-time series, the numbers are skewed. Georgia has dominated for the most part, but South Carolina fans consider it a rivalry. I don't know how much Georgia fans really do, but there have been some wacky, crazy games over the years. I'm excited to see this one back on the schedule. The Gamecocks always seem to rise to the occasion when they play Georgia. There's a lot of Georgia guys on the South Carolina roster. There's a lot of South Carolina guys on the Georgia roster. I agree with you when you look at this schedule. That game at Williams-Brice Stadium, who knows what South Carolina looks like at that point, but especially if South Carolina is overachieving or bouncing back and having the type of year that I know many folks believe they can, that game could get really, really interesting. And like you said, if it's under the lights at Williams-Brice, hold on to your butts. Just hold on to your butts. Things can get wacky. Cole, the Kentucky Wildcats, what is the upset game? Again, you got to factor in how many games they'll be favored in year one of Will Stein. What's the upset alert game for Kentucky in 2026?
They're not going to lose this game, but again, you already mentioned it. You got to factor in the upset. South Alabama. I mean, South Alabama is a team that comes from the Sun Belt. Maybe Will Stein isn't prepared. Maybe there's a matchup to where, you feel like, hey, they got a superstar wide receiver who Stein is probably scouting for 2027 to join forces with this squad next season. That injury, quarterback plays insufficient, and lo and behold, the Jaguars come to Kroger Field in a new era of Wildcat football, and they give a pouncing. I mean, it's not to say it will happen. In fact, for my money, this is probably the least likely one I see happening of all the upsets. But it still has to be a game that you're going to be favored in that you may end up losing. This is the only surefire, no doubt, guaranteed right now game you will be favored in.
Cole, what was the game last year you picked Kentucky to lose?
It was week 1 against Toledo.
That's right, Toledo. And again, I'm not calling you crazy because there were others out there that were picking that upset also.
There were some people who said they'd go 0-12, and I was like, that's a little far, but 2-10 wasn't that far off.
The Toledo pick was a hot pick. There were a lot of people on Toledo in that game. I'm also going South Alabama. I agree with you. Number one, it's an intriguing Sun Belt matchup, but number two, it really comes down to how many games is Kentucky truly favored in, where them losing would be some upset. I think South Alabama default is the pick here. Cole, let's go to the LSU Tigers. Year one of Lane Kiffin, the upset alert game for LSU this season.
We just talked about him. Take me back to Kroger Field in Kentucky. Look, what do we know about Will Stein? He is the next big offensive guru head coach. Everyone loved his film when he was at UTSA. They loved when he was the when he was the OC at Oregon. He's very infrastructurally built to where they have an offense that can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the nation. And so you throw in the fact that you get a quarterback like Kenny Minchie, and you throw in the fact that you get a running back like CJ Baxter. You add in some good wide receiver play, and there's some stability on the offensive line, and there's some stability on the defense. And Lane Kiffin in year one is going to be facing a lot of expectations to meet. And let's remember, Lane struggled with Kentucky when he was at Ole Miss. He lost at home in one game, and there probably is going to be a matchup to where they pull off the crazy win against an opponent that they shouldn't, and then they lose a game that they shouldn't lose either. This feels like the perfect trap game. LSU coming on in, vibes are good. Lo and behold, here comes Will Stein and company going ahead and putting down a beatdown.
Cole, I like it. I admittedly, my pick, I'm so stoked to see this game back on the schedule. Again, I talked about it before. I grew up watching this game, as did you. So many classic matchups between this two, but I'm going to go the game at Auburn. Anytime you walk in a Jordan Hare, again, it's one of those places you have to be really, really careful. Falls right in the middle of the season, right before the bye week to go into the game against Alabama late in the season. Really, a lot of this just comes down to, again, Auburn seems to every year have that game at home where they show up and they show out and they play their best football. Could be a signature win moment for Alex Golesh. LSU at Auburn. Watch out for that one. The Auburn game could be tough. And again, Auburn's going to be really excited to get this game back on the schedule. Again, a low-key, heck, I'll call it a high-key rivalry for many, many years. It was a shame we lost this game with the realignment and what have you, expansion of the conference. So LSU at Auburn, I think, could be one of the big upsets of the season. Cole, let's go to Mississippi State. Again, for Mississippi State, how many games will they actually be favored in? That shrinks the list of options significantly. Cole, you and I have the same selection. The upset alert game for Mississippi State is,
I guess, Minnesota, which they still may be underdogs in for all we know. I mean, we don't know at this point what Minnesota is going to be. I can tell you what, they got a good young quarterback in Drake Lindsey that's a superstar. They have a coach that constantly is getting to like 8+ wins with PJ Fleck. They always seem to have good offensive line play. Defensively, they're pretty sound. This is a game where if you go into Huntington Bank and you feel like that your offense is very high tempo and explosive, if they shut it down, you're going to rely on your defense. And I just don't know if, even with Zach Arnett taking on over as the play caller, it's going to be good enough. Like, they may not even be favored in this game for all we know, but this is the one that I feel the most confident. Like, okay, if they're favored, road atmosphere, SEC versus middling Big Ten, there's a scenario where it happens.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Cole, I felt nasty thinking about picking either La Monroe or Tennessee Tech. So I guess at Minnesota it is. I would agree with you. This is the pick you have to go with here when you're talking Mississippi State. But yeah, I don't feel great about it either way. You're right. They may not even be the favorite in this game. Cole, let's go to Missouri. The Missouri Tigers upset alert game for MIZ this season.
I actually am going to go back to Starkville and say Mississippi State, because I think that this early on in the season, Missouri, what they got returning in Ahmad Hardy, you got Austin Simmons. That's a quarterback that a lot of people, including me, still very much believes in. Maybe they're riding hot going into Starkville. And I'm not sure what Mississippi State's going to be at this point, but I'll tell you what, we're not spending enough time talking about what Mississippi State didn't lose. Flip Bothwell still is there. Anthony Evans, who was top 5 in receptions in the SEC, is still there. They brought in some really good transfer portal pieces. They have a quarterback in Kamario Taylor that might be a lightning rod. And it's Jeff Lebby's offense. So if there's ever an opportunity to where Mississippi State could get a statement win in the conference and really kind of set the tone for the rest of the year, it would be against a Missouri that maybe feels like it's being underwhelmed or underappreciated, to unfortunately have to walk into the belly of the beast that is the Cathedral of Chaos known as Starkville and find a way just to get blown out.
Cole, I'm going to go with the game at Arkansas. Something tells me Arkansas is going to sell out to win this football game in year one of Ryan Silverfield. I just, again, it's been a long time. Mizzou has just beat up on Arkansas over the years. I think Mizzou absolutely going to be favored in this game. I know that Missouri is coming off the bye. Some of this seems crazy, but give me that game at Arkansas. That is just one I look at and I stare at for a little bit longer than I probably should. Also, by the way, Arkansas coming off the bye, going in that game. So kind of X's that out, neutralizes that out. But that game at Arkansas, be wary of the Hogs in that road matchup if you're Missouri. Cole, the Oklahoma Sooners, upset alert game for OU this season.
I'm going to stay in Starkville and do it again. Mississippi State. Here's the thing. It's a little bit different. What does Mississippi State have that nobody else in the SEC does. They got Brent Venables' former OC. Jeff Levy's the head coach. Anybody knows how to beat Jeff Levy? I mean, anybody knows how to beat Brent Venables. It's a guy that worked alongside him, kind of picking and prodding, and what didn't work. What were things that he thought about his offense or defense that were really struggling at times? Got a mobile quarterback, got a guy who can really run with Fluff Bothwell, got a good wide receiver one in Anthony Evans. He's basically like Isaiah Satanga. I'm just saying that this feels like one of those games to where everything could be lined on up for Mississippi State to do damage against an opponent that for the most part is probably still going to be really good. But like every once in a while, the former assistant just finds a way to pull off a weird win against a really compelling team. That feels like a spot.
Cole, I'm actually going to go the following week, the game against South Carolina at home. I know Oklahoma got their vengeance last year in Columbia, but you might recall 2 years ago, and again, I know the cast of characters is different. I totally understand, but you might recall 2 years ago when South Carolina went into Norman, and that game was over before it started, right? It was like 21-0, like 5 minutes into the game. Again, South Carolina, I think, just one of these tricky games. It seems like they pull one out of their hat every single year. This could be the game, especially like Oklahoma, South Carolina is probably going to be that sleepy 11 a.m. kickoff. Don't let an upstart Gamecocks team come in with it. Still have Lenora Sellers, still have a Nick Harbor, still have Dylan Stewart. Don't let them come in and get off to a hot start early like they did just a few years ago and pull off the upset, because I think they very well could. Cole, let's go to the Ole Miss Rebels. Who should Hottie Toddy be weary of? Upset alert for this upcoming season.
I went back and forth with this one, and honestly, I did just to be different than you. It's in Nashville. It's just not the game that you're picking in Nashville. I'm going Vanderbilt. I think that if Jared Curtis is the real deal, I mean, my God, we have no idea what to make of Pete Golding. Like, we don't. Like, it's great to see him win a game against Georgia and go 2-1 in the playoff, but now it's his team, and it's a new offense coordinator and John David Baker, and it's a little bit of a new ideology when it comes to some things. So what if Jared Curtis is as advertised? He's picking up the offense like immediately, and all these younger players at wide receiver and on the offensive line, they're hitting their stride at the right moment. It's a recipe for a clear upset. Trinidad Chambliss coming off of a hell of a season. Keywan Lacey set for maybe a little bit of regression. And here come the team from Nashville that everyone is once again sleeping on. And we're like, damn, it's Vanderbilt. It's little old Vandy. They're right back. No Diego Pavia. No, they're not back. Here's what they are doing. They're here to stay. That's what they're about to make happen.
Cole, I like it. I'm going to go the season opener, actually. The first game of the season for Pete Golding in his first full year as head coach right here in Nashville. Actually, another Nashville game, as Ole Miss will be here twice. But this one will be played at Nissan Stadium. I'm going the game against Louisville, just right out the gate. Week one's always weird. You never know what can happen. I'm going to go with this one against Louisville. I think it could be a tricky game, non-conference game, SEC on ACC. We'll see how Pete Golding comes out of the gate in week number 1. The playoff obviously indicated he should be good to go, but a lot of new pieces, new offensive coordinator. I know you got Trinidad Chambliss and Keywan Lacey back, but again, things can just get weird in week 1. Be wary of that week 1 showdown. Cole, let's go to South Carolina. Like we mentioned before, how many games will the Gamecocks actually be favored in? Your thoughts, what the upset alert game is. You and I actually, funny enough, have the same selection for Carolina.
3 for 3 on Mississippi State. Look, I'm sorry. It'll be early in the season. It'll be one of your first SEC games. You'll probably be favored in it. So what if you end up dropping the ball? Like, nothing is working. Lenora Sellers isn't up to par. Offensive play calling is still abysmal. And here you got a guy in Jeff Levy that already knows how to work alongside his quarterback, already has a good offensive ideology. And instead of South Carolina's offense getting better, it's Mississippi State's defense that's getting better. You add all that up, it feels like the easiest of trap games. Like, this is the one to where, hey, if you look really bad, we're in for a long season. Shane Beamer, I'd fire out the resume if I were you.
I agree with you, Cole. And if you win this one, I think Kentucky turns into that upset alert game, because admittedly, you look at what happened last year when Kentucky came to town. I mean, it was a lot of self-inflicted wounds for them, right? What was the narrative we talked with South Carolina last year? If they don't force turnovers and make big plays in special teams, they're going to struggle. What did they do in that game against Kentucky? They did exactly both of those things. You can look at it one of two ways, Cole, for South Carolina. You've got Kent State and Towson in your first two ball games, and then Mississippi State to open up SEC play. So you can look at it as, hey, we've got two layups, we got two games to get ourselves right and figure out, make improvements or what have you before we go into Mississippi State. Or, Cole, you could look at it as, we're not even really going to know who we have or what we are until we go up against Mississippi State. And what if you get punched in the mouth and the answers you get aren't answers you like? So I would agree with you. I think they're going to be favored in that ball game. And even with it being in Columbia, tricky game. Very, very, very tricky game. There will be a lot of pressure on that game too, because South Carolina pivotal to get off to a good start this season. Cole, let's go to the Tennessee Vols. What's the upset alert game for Rocky Top in 2026?
The last time you had a young quarterback making a debut on the road against this team, they found a way to lose. Guess what? Arkansas, welcome back to the party. It's going to be Fayetteville, Vietnam, probably a Saturday night game. Two young quarterbacks duking it out. And Ryan Silverfield is probably destined to become a lot like Sam Pittman, where he gets a win against an opponent that he shouldn't. This feels like one that is not an easy layup, but definitely one to where I would be paying close attention to. If things do not go according to plan defensively, if somehow, some reason, Faison Brandon or George McIntyre is struggling offensively, I'm not even sure this is going to be considered an upset by the time that we get here, but certainly going into the season, it would 1,000% be an upset.
Cole, I like the pick. I'm going to go a few weeks later, and I just talked about them at South Carolina. This Tennessee-South Carolina series, Cole, it's crazy. I mean, I'm trying to think. It wasn't the last time they met. Maybe it was the last time in Williams-Brice Stadium. Yeah, I think that is correct. The last time these two teams met in Williams-Brice Stadium was the Spencer Rattler game when he threw for like 430-something yards, and the Gamecocks won that game. I think it was 63-38 was the final, and essentially dashed the hopes. You talk about the ultimate upset, Cole. I believe Tennessee was a 22-point favorite in that game or something in that nature. Tennessee doesn't need me to explain going into Williams-Brice Stadium what that entails, especially under the lights. Probably going to get a night game for this one at South Carolina. Beware Tennessee. I don't really need to go any further because Vols fans know better than most about the challenges of this place. Old SEC East foes back on the schedule. Cole, let's go to the Texas Longhorns. What's the game for Hook'em they got to be weary of in 2026?
God bless. It doesn't feel like an upset, but it would be. It'd be Tennessee. And the reason why is because it's your first time playing in Rocky Top. First time playing in Neyland. Like, I don't think that enough people pay attention to. When I factor in games, I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at opponents. I'm looking at structure. I'm looking at players, injury reports. I'm also looking at atmospheres. Brother, there is no more intimidating atmosphere than Neyland Stadium outside of Death Valley, and you're going to both this year. Like, one, you can at least say, okay, LSU's probably meant to be at least a college football playoff team. Here, like most people are like, you go 9-3, that's a hell of a season. It's going to be an early game of the season. You're still going to have a young quarterback in either Brandon or in McIntyre learning the ins and outs of the offensive hype. The defense is still going to be getting its footing underneath itself. And you're going into a place where sound doesn't leave the area. It just ricochets back down, and it makes it 10 times louder, and it makes it that much more intimidating. Like, very easily, I could see UT beating UT, and then UT getting call itself UT over UT the rest of all time. You know which UT I'm talking about, that UT over that UT.
Cole, that was why I didn't go at Tennessee, admittedly, because you're right. I do think Texas will be favored in the game, but you know how there's games that you talk about them being an upset so much that by the time you get there, it doesn't really even feel like an upset. That feels like what that game is going to be, although I think technically you are correct. I'm going to go a little bit later in the season. The game at Missouri just feels like a weird game to me. It feels like the ultimate trap game. You got at LSU the following week. Could this potentially be a look-ahead spot where Texas is salivating at the mouth to get down to Baton Rouge? Hey, don't forget, you got MIZ. You got to go to Como and head out to Faurot Field. So at Missouri, for me, is the pick I'm going to go with. Could be a really, really tricky game for the Longhorns. Cole, let's go Texas A&M. Your thoughts, upset alert game for the Aggies in 2026.
You got a great defensive-minded coach probably having to slip up against a great offensive-minded coach, who's the one offensive-minded coach that we all give a lot of credit to for what he was able to accomplish. It's Kenny Dillingham. It's Arizona State. It's a Big 12 team that is going to have a revamped quarterback room, especially now with Cutter Boley coming on in. But yet still, it's not like that they're barren. Like, yes, they lose Jordan Tyson, a superstar wide receiver. Then when they brought in O'Marion Miller, who was like an elite playmaker for Colorado. And it's a game to where Arizona State, if things can go according to plan, they're going to be very well caught up offensively with all their young playmakers going up against a defense that still is going to have a little bit of a trepidation when it comes to some young guys that are gelling together. Maybe you're able to force a couple of big-time turnovers for Marcel Reed, and he struggles in that game. But I believe Kenny Dillingham is one of the better offensive masterminds in the sport that is able to run an offense accordingly. I could see him marching on into Kyle Field and finding a way to pull off the upset.
Cole, I'm actually going to go the game that you called the most important game for the Aggies in 2026. Give me at South Carolina. I mean, this is a game that A&M is absolutely going to be favored here. South Carolina almost did it for the first time, but they still have not won in College Station. The only place South Carolina's beaten Texas A&M is in Columbia. And you and I both recall the matchup a couple years ago where Lenora Sellers went wild and it was a crazy night at Williams-Brice. Could it be that yet again? I know A&M's coming off the bye week, obviously, for this game, so that throws an extra wrinkle in the ball game, and you feel like A&M should be even more prepared. But after this, you've got Tennessee at OU, Texas at home. Again, Cole, weird things happen at Willie B, and South Carolina is just one of those teams that at any moment can jump up and snake bite you. So give me the game at South Carolina, a lot of it having to do with because of what we saw just a couple years ago. Will Mike Elko and company be ready to go in that ball game? Finally, Cole, the Vanderbilt Commodores. What's the game for Vandy that you put them on upset alert on for this season?
The last 2 years, they've played against an ACC opponent. They've been able to handle business against them. This season, they're playing an ACC opponent. I don't know if they will. It's NC State. And I know my closeted love for NC State may be showing a little bit on through here, but they did bring back CJ Bailey. Like, that was a big-time deal for Dave Duran's roster. Hey, we got a top 15 quarterback that wants to stay in Raleigh for another season. Can we build around him? That's a big question. And it's early enough in the year to where maybe this is one Vanderbilt is living off of last season's hype, because we do it every single offseason. We give them a little bit of credit for what they do. And we don't really know what they are, but I do know who CJ Bailey is as a quarterback. I could see this being a game to where he's throwing for 230 yards and finding his way in the end zone 4 times. And even if you see Jared Curtis really kind of step on up and hone in as QB1, it could end up being a very, very close game.
Cole, one quick thing. So you think Vandy's going to be favored against NC State?
I could see it right now. I mean, like, think about it. When is the game?
Yeah, I believe it's week 3. Yeah, it's week 3. They've got Austin P, whoever that team in week 2 is. Delaware, and then NC State.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, again, right now, what do we know? We know for a fact that we always will give some accreditation to what happened the year before. So a 10-win campaign and 2 wins against Austin P and Delaware, that probably is going to be enough to say it may be a 3.5-point spread. It may be a 4-point spread. It still would be an upset. It still would end up being an upset. I don't think it would be an upset in terms of the overall matchup, but in terms of betting lines, in terms of numbers attached to names, yeah, it would.
Yeah, and the game being in Nashville too. Fair enough. Cole, speaking of that, the game I'm going to go with is also in Nashville. I'm going to go the game against Arkansas. Again, it's just another game, another team where I think Arkansas could be tricky. And you look at the rest of the schedule, and again, maybe this is my old Vanderbilt brain operating, but I'm like, how many of these games is Vanderbilt going to be a significant favorite in? Where I'm like, I'm not going to go at Auburn, at Georgia, Ole Miss. I guess maybe you could go Mississippi State, but the game against Arkansas, I think Arkansas, I don't know that Arkansas is going to be great this year, but again, I think they're going to be sneaky good and could be a dangerous team that teams have to play. Give me the Hogs when they come to Nashville in week number 7 as the upset alert game for the Doors. So those are our upset alert games for each SEC football team in 2026. Guys, we'd love to hear from you. Where are we right? Where are we wrong? And which teams do you think and what games should be on upset alert this upcoming season. Guys, we got more to get into here on Chewing Clock. Before we do, I want to tell you about our friends over at Underdog, because as always, we are brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, and this is a really exciting time to be playing with Underdog, guys. Fast breaks, buzzer beaters, block parties are back. Underdog's the best place to get in on all of the action. Playing at Underdog super easy. Just pick whether your favorite players are going to go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. If you get your picks right, you can win it to 5,000 times your cash, guys. We got the SEC tournament in full swing right now. March Madness is just around the corner. Everything you need to get yourself right is over at Underdog for all of the basketball action. Make sure you download the app today. Use promo code SECU to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. It's promo code SECU. Underdog, make picks, win money. Must be 18 and up, 19 with Alabama, Nebraska, 19 with Colorado for some games, 21 and up in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. If you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-MY-RESET or 1-800-GAMBLER, or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Cole, let's keep it moving. Really quickly before we do, guys, I want to say what's up to a couple of you in the chat. John Bros says, go Tigers. Appreciate you. Our guy, Turkey Slammer, a.k.a. Miss Terry's Bathwaters up in here, of course, as always. Christopher Johnson says, better be nice to those Missouri Tigers. I think we were. I don't think
Mississippi State's fine. It's not respectable, but it is fine.
Yeah, I don't think we were disrespectful to Mizzou. Jeremy Scott says, roll Tide. He was the first comment of the day. Really appreciate you tuning in. Riley says, as a State fan, the game I picked State should be on upset alert is Minnesota, only because State won't be favored and more than likely won't win against anyone else. Well, I mean, you said it. You said it. Riley says, I have a strong feeling Alabama could be upset by Mississippi State. They always lose a few games they're not supposed to, and on the road at State is interesting. Boy, the post-Nick Saban effect. Imagine saying that statement a couple years ago. Our guy, Carolina Jackpot, in the comments as well, I don't think NC State beating Vandy would be considered an upset. It may or may not. It may or may not. I get where you're coming from, though, Cole, to be fair. So I don't really know what NC State's going to be honest with you. They're kind of
nobody does, I think. Look, okay, you have a veteran quarterback, but you lost your star wide receiver to Alabama. You lost your star tight end to the NFL draft. You brought a bunch of guys that you just don't know who they are. So it's like, right now, I think NC State is the perennial redheaded stepchild of the ACC. Yeah, you love it. You know it's there. But, like, really, is it there? They're never going to be in the college football playoff conversation. And right now, they're probably never going to be out of bowl eligibility. They'll be right at 6-6, and you'll take it.
Yeah, NC State's one of those football programs, Cole, not to spend a lot of time on them. They're kind of in a, like, where do they fit in the new era of college football? You know what I mean? It's just like, where does NC State really fit into the equation? Cole, let's keep it moving. Really excited to get into this today. Our season will be successful if series continues today. We are talking the Oklahoma Sooners. Cole, let's start with them, a team coming off a college football playoff appearance. And Cole, you would think coming off an appearance in the CFP that, you know, everything was sunshine and rainbows and everyone felt great and Brent Venables bought himself some more time. Cole, oddly enough, it feels like we're having a lot of the same conversations we were having at this point last year. I mean, not obviously to the severity, because winning helps and winning cures all, but it's like we've just reset the expectations all over again. Cole, what was the narrative going into last season? 8-4 may not be good enough to get him back. The expectations in Norman are so high, it's probably going to have to be 9-3 or better. And really, with the investment you've made, getting to the college football playoffs, the expectation. Well, to be fair, you made it last year, but you went one and done. You let Alabama come into your backyard and beat you. So now it feels as if, Cole, the expectations are reset all over again. I don't know if it's college football playoff or bust for Oklahoma in 2026, but if not, it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, it's not bust, but I do think that you expect 9-3. You expect to be going into the last month of the season, finding your name inside that top 12 conversation. You expect to be one of those rosters that is really well built and established as a pioneer of the new version of the SEC. I think that's just the case. And it should be the case in Oklahoma. There's certain schools that you look at and you say to yourself, what is not good enough? You can go 8-4, and it's like, that's a great year. Yeah, but not here. That's like what we call almost panic mode season. And Oklahoma kind of fits in that category. And it really fits in that category because here's the part that is scary. Oklahoma already won the respect and the trust of everybody around college football on playing a vigorous schedule. Because last season, they got dealt the hand from hell and they still managed to go 10-2. And the two teams that they lost to were a rivalry game and a team that played all the way down to the last buzzer for a shot at the national championship. And that was with a daunting schedule. And this season, it still is a tough schedule. It's not as tough, but it still is tough. So it's like, we did this without having sufficient quarterback play, an insufficient offensive line, lackluster run game, and an elite defense. Well, the guy that was running the defense is still here. And we went out, we brought in a lot of pieces via the portal to upgrade some certain spots. And, oh, by the way, if you didn't realize, we still have a ton of young defensive talent back for another season. Like, they should be expecting 9-3 is not great, but you know what? We'll take it because of at least we were in the running up until the very last week of the regular season. That's what you need to think if you're at Oklahoma for Brent Venables and company.
Cole, I'm just going to ask you this question. Do you feel like Oklahoma fans' expectations year in, year out in the SEC are fair, or are they too high?
I think it's fair. I do. I think Oklahoma, there's a certain brand and standard. There just is. So I think that when you sign up to become the head coach at a place like Norman, and you know what the history has been, constant playoff bound, seasons, Heisman Trophy winners, All-Americans, and what has been really for a while a staple in college football. Simply because if you're leaving the Big 12 to go to a new conference does not mean the expectations are going away. They know what they're signing up for. And I think that it's why it's one of those jobs where you got to be able to get a surefire Sooner man. You need somebody who is going to be invested and understands the culture and the lay of the land and how to recruit and how to be able to win over boosters to go ahead and funnel in an extra couple $1 million. It's because of what they expect when you sign on the dotted line. They think of you as a team that should be winning conference titles, competing for national championships, and settling for just a top 25 finish is not okay. And it never should be okay at a program like Oklahoma. Because they know what it takes to win, and they've shown you on a regular basis how to win.
Cole, this is going to be a talking point of conversation all throughout the preseason and the offseason, what have you, as we count down to the 2026 season. Brent Venables and his job security. Do you feel like, has the job security increased from this time last year? I know that feels like a silly question, but I ask because it does feel like we're sort of having, and we're going to be having, the same conversations all over again about him. Like, if they go 7-5 this year, I think Brent Venables very well could be fired. It's as crazy. I don't think he bought himself another year or two because of last year's finish. And fairly, unfairly, I still think the jury is out on Brent Venables. And again, I don't know how fair or unfair that is. How hot do you think his seat is really going into the season?
I think it's lukewarm at best going into the season. I do. You know what it reminds me of? 2024 South Carolina. Like South Carolina, when they went 9-3 and they felt like they were snubbed a college football playoff berth. The fact was that it felt like this is where Shane Beamer had it made. And so going into 2025, you go 4-8. And a lot of people were saying, we want him fired. We want him gone. We don't want him around the building anymore. But then Jeremiah Donati said, let's give him an offseason. Get some new coordinators in here. Go big in the portal. We'll figure it out. Now, if he doesn't do it this year, all bets are off. That's me for Brent Venables in 2026. They go 6-6. It very much is that same roller coaster we see in Columbia out in Norman. From high to low, high to low, high to low. And you're tired of just going back and forth in an institution like the Sooners. But I think that because of you went to the playoff, you beat Alabama in their backyard, you were able to, with lackluster offensive line execution and limited quarterback play, go into Neyland Stadium, play that schedule, get to the postseason, host a playoff game. You add all that up, you're at least going to get one more year. The seat will be scorching going into 2027. But he's going to be, I think, safe until 2027.
So, Cole, on that note, let's answer the question, which is, what will define a successful season for Oklahoma in 2026? Again, the fun thing about this exercise, there's a number of different ways to answer this, whether it's a win total, it's a certain mark hit in postseason play, it's something to do with an individual player, coach, what have you. But, Cole, in your mind, the season will be successful if, for Oklahoma, what will define a successful campaign for the Sooners?
If they can actually run the freaking football. That's it for me. And I say that because Oklahoma last season, they dominated defensively. Okay, well, your defense coordinator's not going anywhere. They killed it when you had a healthy John Mateer. Okay, well, John Mateer is going to be healthy, so you should at least see the version of him that we witnessed against Michigan. I like the wide receiver room. Dude, they went 10-2 last season with a lackluster run game that finished 113th in the country. I mean, if you can run the football at top 60 level, you should be 10-2. Because if I don't think that you're going to see John Mateer play as poorly as he did in the second half for the entirety of the season, I do like the addition of Parker Livingston. I do think that Isaiah Satanga's got more left in the tank. I think that one of the more underrated transfer portal additions was Terrell Harris from Virginia. They added in more playmakers. They should be better on the offensive line because everyone's had a year of experience with Bill Beatonbow. So all the pieces are still there for you to be good, but when you become a one-dimensional offense and everyone's like, hey, they have to throw it or 10's going to run. Those are the only two ways that they're going to win this game. And you say, take away the passing attack, we're going to force 10 to run. You basically have tied your arm behind your back and say, you got to win 10-3. You got to win 9-6. It's got to be a field goal game. And you have a great field goal kicker. Tate Sandell won the Gross Award last season. So if you can run the football efficiently, I'm not even saying like 6 yards of play, getting in the end zone 30 times. I'm saying, can you get in the end zone 25 times, average at least 4.5 yards, and finish with over 130 rushing yards per game? If you can do that, I think that everything else is going to fall into play to where 9-3 should be the bare minimum. 11-1 could be the expectation. But you got to run the football. You cannot be this piss poor, lackluster, one-dimensional offense again.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Cole. I would piggyback and say I think establishing that identity on both lines of scrimmage, especially the offensive line of scrimmage, is going to be pivotal for them. I'll go a little bit of a different direction, though. And again, this is, if you've been following along with this series, if you do continue to follow along, you're going to notice this was me. I try to stay away from just putting it on a win total or what have you, or like the national championship. Like, no duh. What's the thing that's going to get them there, which is why I like your answer, Cole, because I would agree with you. If they're much better on the offensive front, I would assume they're going to be a much better football team than they were last year even. The season will be successful for Oklahoma if John Mateer's decision-making improves. I think if his decision-making improves, he's got everything else, and he can be one of the most dangerous signal callers, one of the top signal callers in the SEC. But at times, it was very rough and it was very, very shaky. I saw some film on John Mateer just a couple of days ago on social media showing back-to-back throws from him in the game against Michigan even, a game that Oklahoma obviously won. One throw, he's brilliant, Cole, and the next, he's making a bad decision that results in a near interception. So he's got to clean that up. He's got to raise the floor a little bit. He was a bit erratic at times. I think if John Mateer's decision-making can improve, and I agree with you, I think obviously having a better run game would assist with him that greatly, and not him probably feeling like he doesn't have to put the whole team on his back. But even if they can't run the football, that doesn't give you the excuse to force the football in a triple coverage. And you and I were there firsthand watching him in the Red River shootout. He's made some boneheaded plays, some boneheaded throws, some throws you cannot make. That's got to improve. If it does, I think the win total for Oklahoma, I think it's going to take care of itself. I don't think you're going to have to much worry about that, because we know Oklahoma's going to play defense. If the offense, really what we're saying, if the offense can take the step forward, I think Oklahoma should be right back to where they were last year, matching that win total. Who knows, maybe even exceeding that win total. So,
like, you'll be more confident, I think, in Oklahoma having, at least with a decent run game, you'll feel probably way more confident in them at 10-2 than what they were this year at 10-2. Because you won't just be relying so heavily, hey, can our defense get a critical stop or a scoop and score here? Where, by the way, you are losing some defensive talent. Got a lot of good defensive talent still in there. I mean, David Stone, I think, is going to be a stud. You got both the Bowens out there. I really like what they did by bringing in Cole Sullivan. Kip Lewis isn't going anywhere. But, like, you just don't want to say, hey, defense, win this game for us again for, like, the 20,000th time.
It's going to raise the ceiling significantly if they've got an offense, obviously, that can pair up with what that defense, what you expect it to do under Brent Venables. So, guys, I'd love to hear from you all. Season will be successful for the Oklahoma Sooners if – what is your answer to that question? What will define a successful 2026 for Boomer Sooner? Cole, in closing, let's continue the season will be successful if series with the Tennessee Vols, the Volunteers, who a season ago, it was a weird 2025 campaign, Cole. Tennessee went 8-4, and you look at it on paper and you look at the record, say, okay, not a bad season. Josh Heupel's established a pretty high floor in Knoxville, right? Let's not forget just 5 or 6 years ago when Tennessee, it felt like was in the depths, was in the darkness, wandering through the wilderness, if you will, as a program. But Cole, coming off a season in 2024 in which you made the college football playoff, the expectations are very clearly set coming into the next season. And then, Cole, you go 8-4 and, you throw out the stat that you didn't beat anybody to finish with a winning record in 2025. You didn't have a signature win. You didn't have a moment that you could hang your hat on. Every time you got close, a la the Georgia and Alabama games, you found a way to blow it. You found a way to fall short. Cole, you culminate all that. It's created this pressure cooker of sorts in Rocky Top going in this 2026 season.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing is that right now you don't know what to make of your quarterback play or your defense. Like, it'd be easy for you to look at one side and say, we can rely on this spot to figure things out early on in the season because we're going to be bailed out of trouble on the other side. Well, you can't say that because you were all in on the Joey Aguilar sweepstakes, hopefully landing your QB for another season. And the judge and the injunction stepped on up and said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. You're not getting them back. So now you go from having a quarterback that's stable, that led the SEC in passing last year, to 2 rookies. Oh, and then you also have a new defense coordinator, which, by the way, Jim Knowles is awesome. Like, Jim Knowles, he may be the best simply coordinator in the game. But it's intricate. That takes a year of development when it comes to developing his system. So you can't rely on it this year specifically to get you out of trouble. You just simply can't. And that's where we are right now. Like, it's a really smart hire by Josh Heupel. But the problem is that it's going to be a growing period. So neither side can really rely on the other one to kind of pull its end of the weight, at least going into next season.
Cole, Tennessee fans would be crazy to run Josh Heupel out of Knoxville, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like, look, I understand what the expectation is at Tennessee, and I was actually arguing this earlier today on my radio show. The Tennessee, the expectation should never change. You should think that you're expected to be a pioneer of the conference, because once upon a time, Tennessee was a pioneer of the conference. They were one of the more complete teams in college football. But Josh Heupel's done the improbable that every other coach has failed to do. Bring back even a remnants of the Philip Fulmer days. 10-win seasons, quality quarterback play, and offensive juice. Like, things that really were focal points to the level of your team back in the 90s and the early 2000s. You just can't go ahead and hit reset because if you're going 8-4. Like, if he was going 8-4 consistently, yeah, maybe we could have that conversation. But he's got 2 10-win campaigns under his belt. You want to know who doesn't have that? Every other coach between him and Philip Fulmer. Nobody else even has 1 10-win campaign. Like, that says a lot about where you are and what you've been able to accomplish over the last few years.
So, Cole, when it comes to the Tennessee Volunteers, again, expectations are extremely high. Vols are trying to get back to the college football playoff, like we mentioned. There are a number of question marks on this roster. Specifically, they center on the quarterback position after Joey Aguilar. His eligibility, obviously, that attempt was shot down. It'll now be a quarterback battle going throughout spring, potentially going throughout summer and into the fall. When you look at this season, Cole, again, Tennessee is going to be one of the most intriguing teams to break down in the SEC. Certainly going to be one of those, I think, middle-of-the-pack, dark horse, college football playoff SEC teams. But is that what defines a successful season for them? When you look at Rocky Top, when you look at Tennessee, how do you define success for the Vols in this 2026 campaign?
I think it's being able to see your defense win you a couple games. And I say that because of the year that you went to the playoff, you were able to run the football efficiently, and you were able to defend the run and really just everything in general efficiently on the defensive side. Last season, Tim Banks failed to meet expectations. They were 91st in scoring. They were 113th in something. They were bottom 30 in almost every single category. And so they fired him. And you're bringing in a damn good mind that I think has brought in some really good players that understand his system. I mean, they went and they bring in Amari Campbell, and they go in and they bring in Xavier Gillum and Chaz Coleman, and then you get Dejon Lane and TJ Metcalf and Kayan Lee and Quan Moss, and all these guys are players who are proven. Now they just have to fit the defense. And now I just got to gel and look like one cohesive unit that's been playing together for 9 months, 10 months, within 3 months. That's really what the plan is. Because if your defense can be ahead of schedule, I think that 9-3 is possible. I really do. I'm not going to doubt Josh Heupel and his development of quarterbacks, because guess what? The last time we did, Joey Aguilar led the SEC in passing. You still have 2 really good young wide receivers. You still have your leading rusher, and your offensive line is still pretty stable. So even with all the question marks that you have long-term around the status of Josh Heupel and what needs to change when it comes to his offensive personnel, it's good enough to get the job done, because it was last season. I need the defense to be able to say, we've been able to learn 75% of what it takes to be a perfect unit underneath Jim Knowles by mid-October. If you do that, you're going to win multiple games. You're going to be competitive. You're going to have a potential top 15 finish, and maybe you'll even be a dark horse to go to the college football playoff. But if that defense can be ahead of schedule, and I mean really ahead of schedule, because there's ahead of schedule, and then there's also we're ahead of what we expect for a Jim Knowles defense. You need to be the latter. You need to be at that point. We're ahead of what Jim Knowles expects us to be this year. You do that, you're probably going to be in that 8-9 win range.
Cole, I agree with all the points you hit on. It's funny. I'm going against what I just said earlier when we were talking about Oklahoma, when I said that, typically for me, what defines a successful season, I don't put it on a win total necessarily. I'm going against that when it comes to Tennessee, because I do think there is a certain win threshold you need to hit, you need to mark. Josh Heupel has established the floor in Knoxville at 8 wins, right? You think back, Joe Milton, the year he was quarterback, they had a quote-unquote down year. They still went 8-4. Last year with Joey Aguilar, who did play well, you had some moments where you stubbed the toe, you still found a way to go 8-4. I think 8-4 is a great floor. I really do. If your worst year is going 8-4, I mean, Cole, an 8-4 season, if we're being honest, is fun. This is kind of a side topic. I think more fan bases need to fall in love with 8-4. Not everybody can go 10-2 or 11-1 or 12-0 in the new age of college football. You go 8-4, count your blessings. You had a pretty good season. You're still a lot better than most teams in college football. I know we've kind of lost the plot in 2026 and what this new age of college football is, but Cole, there was a time where 8-4 was looked at highly as a pretty darn good season. That being said, I get why 2025 was underwhelming. When I look at Tennessee's schedule, there are 4 games that jump out to me. Texas, Alabama, at Texas A&M, LSU. Not only is the win total important, but what games you're winning if you're Tennessee are important. Cole, I think a successful season for Tennessee in 2026, I think you at minimum need to win 8 games. You need to go 8-4 or better, preferably better, but you need to win one of those 4 signature games on your schedule. Another 8-4, another empty 8-4, where you just beat the teams you're supposed to beat, but you lost the teams you're supposed to lose to, quote unquote. I don't think it's going to satisfy this Tennessee fan base. I don't. So of those 4, Texas, Alabama, at A&M, LSU, and I'd say, Cole, really most importantly, Texas, Alabama, LSU, because protecting Rocky Top is of the utmost importance. I think you need to score a signature win against one of those teams I mentioned, and I think you need to find a way to go 8-4 or better. I don't think the Tennessee fan base is going to be thrilled with 8-4, but if you go 8-4 and you beat Texas at home, or again, you beat Alabama or you beat LSU or even a Texas A&M, especially if they're on the path they were last year, I think you can at least look at that goal and say, hey, we're still on the right path. We still believe in Coach Josh Heupel. I'm still backing everything we're about as a program. But Cole, if you go, God forbid, 7-5 or even 8-4, and you kind of just, dare I say, go through the motions and just sort of beat who you're supposed to and lose who you're quote unquote supposed to, I just don't think that's going to satisfy the appetite of this Tennessee fan base. So at minimum, 8 wins, one of them being a signature win, at least one of them being a signature win. I think Jim Knowles is going to do a great job defensively. I agree with you. I think Josh Heupel has proven at the quarterback position we don't have a ton to worry about, but you need to break through this season and score one of those signature wins and get as close to the college football playoff as possible, because I think it'd be crazy for them to run Josh Heupel off. But this fan base is growing restless. This fan base is growing impatient. We know how Tennessee fans can be. You need to show signs of this thing is still on the right track and it is ascending. It's not because, Cole, the worst thing you can be is stuck in neutral. That is sports purgatory. You don't want to be stuck in neutral. You need that moment or moments during this season that shows that Tennessee football is still on the up and up and getting closer to that elite status. And the only way you can do that is by scoring a big win and winning some big games. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for it, but you got to have that breakthrough moment at some point.
This is a season that I think you're looking at. 8-4 could be a very good year depending on what it wins. Like, that to me is where I would go about it. If you end up going 8-4 and you don't beat a single team that's above 500, okay, that's not a good season. But if you get an upset win or two and it's because of the offense is holding its end of the bargain and the defense is starting to get a little bit more proactive, that's a good year. And it's a good year because of this is a season where for the first time, really ever potentially, in the Josh Heupel era, you're going into the season with an unknown at quarterback, like a legit unknown. Because like Nico Iamaleava, we had no idea what he was going to be, but we knew he was QB1. Like everyone knew after the Iowa game, that's QB1 in Knoxville. You don't know that right now. You have no idea what it is. And that is a little intimidating. And that's just a little nerve-wracking to where you can ask yourself, okay, is this going to cost us a playoff spot? And it very well could. Doesn't mean it's a bad deal.
It's going to be an interesting season on Rocky Top, no doubt, Cole. No doubt indeed. Guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. The season will be successful for Tennessee if – what's your answer to that question? We'd love to know what you guys think. What will deem a successful 2026 campaign on Rocky Top for 2026? Cole, that's going to do it all for us. We appreciate you all tuning in. Let's get into a couple comments here. Our guy Jackson says, what's up, SEC Unfiltered Nation? We appreciate you tuning in, my man. He says, Josh Heupel's fine. After all, he's got that Bobby Hill riz. Indeed. Got that Bobby Hill riz.
Got that Wabi Sabi. That's what he got.
William T says John Mateer will win the Heisman. Well, if he does that, Oklahoma achieved everything they wanted to and then some, I believe, in the 2026 season. There's no doubt. Let's see. He says 8-4 will be a successful season for the Vols this season. It could. Again, like Cole said, did they win the right 8? I think there's a right 8 for them to win. John Bros is interesting to see who wins Tennessee's quarterback job. I'm excited for that Tennessee LSU matchup too. That's going to be a really, really fun one late in the season. Cole, Chris Brazel's not still at Tennessee, right? He did go to he's going to the NFL draft.
He's in the NFL. Tennessee's wide receiver core that you need to know about this year is Braylon Staley. It's Radarius Jackson, Mike Matthews, Travis Smith, and TK Keys. That's who you got to worry about. Those are the 5.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, Tennessee going to be one of those fun teams to watch. Guys, always fun when we're chatting with you all, conversating. We really appreciate the love, the support, the engagement, the banter, you guys tuning in. Again, we are live here every single Monday, Wednesday, 2 o'clock Central here on Chewing Clock. So we'll be back on Monday. The season will be successful if series will continue. And I would imagine, Cole, by Monday, we are going to have some spring football intel, some spring football updates that we'll discuss with you. Also, who knows, an array of topics. You guys know we keep the yuck coming here over at Chewing Clock. And again, we can't say thank you enough, again, for y'all being part of the show. So in the meantime, we are going to bid you all adieu. Make sure, as always, you hit that like and subscribe button. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts all across your favorite social media platforms, as well as our website, secuunfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, and make sure you follow him at Mr. Cole Thompson. I'm at CPhilly19. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I am Chris Phillips. This is Chewing Clock. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you all on the other side. Cheers.